the teleprompter at 00:59. The night the city lit up with sirens, our show lit up too. Breaking news does that, pulls oxygen out of rooms and replaces it with purpose. I'm the late-night line producer at Channel 14, the one who decides which sentences make it to air and which die in drafts. When something explodes, I'm the metronome. I cue the anchors, I bully graphics, I bribe weather for another 30 seconds of radar. It's control disguised as chaos, the only religion I still practice. Maya was at the desk that week. Our viewers think of her as inevitable, the face at 11 p.m. with a voice like cool water. At home, she keeps the same composure until she doesn't, until she laughs like a window opening or cries like a train pulling away. We've been together 3 years. I know the notch at the base of her throat where necklaces go to confess things. I also know her tells. There's a tiny movement she makes before a lie. She presses her tongue to her top teeth, like she's testing a voltage. The explosion was at 10:37. A warehouse fire by the river, flames high enough to make the sky look tired. I started stitching a new A block while the control room breathed firewall smoke through the monitors. Our EP, Damon, moved behind me in little circles. He does that when he wants to feel like wind. He's my best friend and my worst influence, the one who taught me how to live on coffee and spite. He's also beautiful in that aggressive way that makes donors and interns pay attention. 2 live hits, then desk, I said, thumbing a rundown that would have to break itself a dozen times. Move the mayor to B block. If she complains, tell her the city is on fire and our loyalty is to fire. Damon grinned. Our loyalty is to ratings, he said, but I'll translate. We were in our choreography, the ballet of chaos, when the teleprompter hiccuped. It's a small blink, a half-second stutter. At 00:59, a script line flashed then vanished. Maya looks off cam, wait, return. It wasn't the words that hit me, it was the punctuation. We use that mark, caps, hyphen, when we're telling the anchor to break the rhythm for drama. I hadn't written it. Damon hadn't either. It was typed from the booth terminal, the one only 3 people touch on nights like these. Me, Damon, and Maya, when she wants to fix a comma mid-show because language is a kind of morality to her. I pinged props. Who added the stage direction? Props sent back a shrug emoji because props thinks everything is theater. Damon scanned the log and raised an eyebrow. It's tagged MD, he said. His initials. He smiled the way men smile when they're deciding whether to be honest or charming. Maybe I wrote it and forgot. You forget nothing on air, I said, and then I let the line go because fires eat airtime and I'm paid to feed them. The show did what adrenaline makes shows do. It flew. Maya tossed to live shots like a conductor tossing roses. She caught a firefighter's eye and lowered her voice by a register so he wouldn't mistake urgency for disrespect. She did not look off camera at 00:59. She looked straight into the lens and into the living rooms and into me and said, "We're with you. Stay with us." I believed her because I always do while the red tally light is on. At 01:13 we broke for a 60-second block of unsellable commercials we'd have to comp later. I slipped into the hallway to breathe a version of air without other people's decisions inside it. The glass door to the green room was open an inch. The way doors are when they've been asked to be seen. Inside, Damon stood too close to Maya. Not touching, not stupid. Close like 2 people sharing a headphone. He lifted a hand as if to tidy a flyaway hair that didn't exist. She tilted her head, not toward him, just to redistribute attention. Her mouth made a small movement around the word wait, and then she smiled and stepped back to the mirror to fix a lipstick that had not misbehaved. I watched as if I were a person who collects footage no one asked for. I told myself it was choreography. I told myself intimacy is sometimes just a shared script. Then I watched Damon's hand drop, a beat late. the way a curtain falls when someone forgets their line. We went back on air. The warehouse became wet concrete with a story. The mayor said leadership words that do not mean anything when you've lost your inventory and your night shift. Maya asked the one useful question and made space for the chief to admit they needed help. At 01:58 we teased ahead to the morning. At 02:03 we tossed to weather's final cloud. At 02:05 the red light died and the studio became furniture again. I caught Maya in the makeup corridor with cotton pads in her hand like white flags. "Who wrote Wait?" I asked, gentle enough to pass as a person who hadn't seen the green room. She dabbed at the corner of her mouth and watched me in the mirror. "I did," she said. "Something felt wrong in the script. I wanted to signal you." "You didn't look off camera," I said. "I didn't need to," she said, and put the cotton in the trash. She turned then, unavoidably beautiful in the way that makes you argue with the part of yourself that wants to win instead of be right. "Are we having a conversation with a time code?" she asked lightly. I almost said no. I almost said, "Let's go home and let the show leave our bodies." Instead I said, "I saw you with Damon." She didn't pretend not to understand. She stepped closer, clean air and powder on her skin. "Do you want to ask the worst version of the question?" she said. "Have you been sleeping with him?" I asked, even though it's never about sleep. "No," she said. "I kissed him. Twice. Once in the edit bay because we were high on saving something that didn't want to be saved. Once on the roof because he said I deserved a sky that looked back." I waited for the voltage tell. It didn't come. "Does he love you?" I asked, because men turn geometry into grammar when they're afraid. "He loves the woman you make me," she said, which is either the cruelest kindness or the kindest cruelty. "He loves being near that light without having to be responsible for it." "And you," I said, "do you love him?" She was quiet long enough for the hallway clock to add a minute to our lives. "I love you," she said. "I loved kissing the part of him that thinks I'm the story, not the script. That is ugly. It's also accurate." Damon found us there because of course he did, because he's the kind of person who reads the air and walks into it on purpose. He leaned on the doorframe like a man auditioning for a better version of himself. "I'm not going to say it was a mistake," he said. It was a choice. It was also small, smaller than this." He gestured between us. "If you want me to go to Dayside for a while, I will." I wanted to hit him for the generosity of that offer. I settled for precision. "You will take mornings," I said. "You will let my nights heal without your face asking for forgiveness every hour. You will not make a speech to the staff about personal growth." He nodded, humbled and still infuriating. "Copy," he said, a newsroom joke that sounded too much like cockpit talk, like something irreversible. He looked at Maya not with apology. He's never performed regret well, but with the kind of care that would make me hate him if I were less tired. Then he walked away. I drove us home in a silence that wasn't punishment, just policy. Our building sleeps badly on nights like these. Sirens travel up brick like gossip. In the kitchen, she poured water and handed me a glass like a peace offering. We stood close enough to be an accident of gravity. She put her hand on my wrist. "Do you want rules?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Structure is my meditation." "No secrets that have time codes," she said. "If I want to tell you something, I tell you in the present, not with a replay." "No green rooms alone with men who like being wind," I said. "No 30-second holds on the teleprompter to make feelings look editorial," she said, smiling despite herself. "No pretending presentation is truth," I said. "We go off script when we need to. We say wait to each other, not to the glass." We went to bed and I learned again there is a way to touch someone without turning it into proof. We kept it slow because speed looks like erasure. She climbed over me with a carefulness that felt like devotion, not penance. I counted breaths instead of mistakes. She said my name like a lower third, identifying unornamented. We were decent and hungry. We slept. The morning meeting was a parade of hangovers. Damon announced his switch to dayside with the swagger of a man spinning a story about leadership. He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. The staff Slack turned into a confetti cannon of reactions. A junior producer DM'd me, "Everything okay?" I sent back a thumbs-up emoji because the truth was not a reaction anyone had the clearance for. In the weeks that followed, I watched the show relearn its gait. Maya's eyes moved differently across the lens, quieter, somehow more truthful. We fought about a cold open like professionals and then kissed by the coffee machine like people who had decided not to quit. Damon texted me things he thought I'd care about. A source who would only talk at dawn, a city councilman trying to be a poet. I answered sometimes and sometimes not. I did not stop loving him. I did teach myself a new kind of distance. One night a month later, the teleprompter froze again at 00:59. This time the line that flashed was mine. Maya looks off cam, wait, return. I hadn't written it. I swore. The operator threw up both hands without leaving the wheel. Maya kept going, tossed to a live shot like a queen. During the break, I sprinted to the booth. "Gremlins," the operator said. He showed me the logs. The command had been pasted from an earlier script and inherited by the template. My chest cooled. We'd been haunted by our own best practices. After the show, I walked to the green room deliberately. The door stood open like a throat. No one was inside. I stood in the frame and put a palm on the hinge, then closed it and opened it again. A door is a device. It only means something when someone uses it to leave or enter at the wrong time. In the kitchen that night, Maya sat on the counter in her robe, legs bare, an orange peeled in her hands with surgical neatness. She fed me a slice. Citrus and newsprint, that's the taste of my life. "We're okay," she asked, not tentative, just asking for the weather. "We're not fixed," I said. "We're in the right block." She laughed. "Tease A, happiness possible, coming up at 11. "Top of the hour," I said. We started doing a small, embarrassing thing. After show, we'd step in front of the mirror and say one headline each about our day that didn't make it on air. "I wanted to kiss a paramedic because he was brave in a way that made me jealous," she'd say. "I didn't. I wanted to call Damon when the city desk finally filed on time," I'd say. "I didn't." It felt juvenile until it felt like relief. On a cold Friday, the station threw a party for a ratings win. People danced like a show had made them lighter, which is the sexiest lie television gets away with. Damon was there and wasn't the sun for once. He held court over by the cookie table, telling a story about a tornado warning in a city that doesn't get tornadoes. He caught my eye and raised his plastic cup. I nodded back. That was the treaty. No speech, no absolution. Just two men in the same room who didn't light each other on fire. We went home early. The city smelled like snow that wouldn't commit. In the hallway, I kissed Maya like I was done pretending I needed an excuse. In the living room, we undressed in the slow way that keeps your dignity intact. She climbed into my lap and put her mouth to my temple and whispered, "Wait," but the kind that means don't rush the part where we remember, not the kind that means look away. We were generous with each other. We were careful. The line between erotic and explicit is thinner than honesty sometimes. We stayed on the right side of it and still felt like thieves. If you ask me whether I wish the kiss in the green room never happened, I'll say yes because that's the policy. If you ask me whether I learned something from watching the wrong word flash on the prompter at 00:59, I'll say yes because that's the story. I learned to stop letting the glass decide when to say wait. I learned that a show can be perfect and still be untrue to the people who make it. I learned that love looks less like a cold open and more like a string of corrected typos. We had a storm 3 months later that made the river forget where the edges were. The city went dark on one side and angry on the other. We were live for 3 straight hours. At 00:59, the teleprompter didn't blink. The command didn't appear. In the break, Maya looked past the lens straight at me and touched 2 fingers to her collarbone, our quiet signal that means I want to talk after. After, in the parking lot, we stood under a light that buzzed like a cheap halo. She took my hands. "Let's move my toothbrush," she said, "from the second shelf to the first." It was not a proposal. It was an edit. I said yes like a man who finally understands which sentence belongs at the top of the show. Some nights I still think about doors, about the way room tone changes when you put your ear against wood. I still think about Damon's hand falling late. I still think about the teleprompter's brief instruction. Wait, return. It's not a bad rule. We've kept half of it. We wait for each other. We return to each other. And when we need to, we look off camera and say, plainly to the only person who matters, "Stay with me."